I'll give it another minute or so. So if anyone's coming in at right at 7 o'clock.
We are good when you're at 7, Your Worship.
Thank you. Well then, welcome ladies and gentlemen, members of council, members of staff. Welcome to the 48th session of council on this Tuesday, May the 25th. I hope you've all had a great long weekend, and that explains why we're meeting on a Tuesday instead of a Monday. Welcome. This is a virtual meeting, as we are becoming accustomed to. As usual, if any member of council loses connection during the meeting, we will take a brief recess to try to let that member reestablish connection. But assuming we have quorum, we will continue the meeting even if we cannot continue with that individual. I hope all of the members are set up and ready to go. And again, I welcome the members in the audience. So the meeting is called to order at 7. We had no closed session this evening. And there's open forum. To the clerk, has there been any last minute calls for an open forum delegation?
Not that we're aware of, Your Worship.
Thank you. And then we move into the public meeting. Public meeting for zoning bylaw amendment for 101 William Henderson Drive. Public meeting is held in accordance with the provisions of section 3412 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, to consider an amendment to the comprehensive zoning bylaw as amended. The proposed amendment applies to Lot 1 on Plan 29 M10 in the Loyalist East Business Park and addressed as 101 William Henderson Drive in Amherstview. The proposed amendment to the Loyalist Township zoning bylaw as amended, if approved, will permit a fitness center use. All other zone requirements of the M1, M116, and M112 zone would continue to apply. Council shall hear in person or by his or her counsel, solicitor, or agent, any person who claims to be affected by this application. And is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this application?
Just going to allow Roger to talk.
Welcome, Mr. Coburn. Can you state your name and address for the record and then give us your presentation?
Roger Colburn, 4733 Taylor Kidd Boulevard, Bath, Ontario. Greetings to Your Honor, the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and distinguished councillors. Thank you for considering this zoning change. This oh, jeez. Sorry. Okay. This application highlights a problem we have in Loyalist Township. I learned while working on Loyalist Township Economic Development Committee that Loyalist, but specifically Amherstview, had approximately 30% of the commercial activity that it requires. I think this situation is getting worse, not better. Most of the industrial vacant property zoned commercial that I know of sits in the hands of speculators. I believe if there was enough commercial rental spaces available, we wouldn't be here today. We cannot afford to lose another business to the city to the east or locations to the west. My second point is that the gym is a great ancillary use that will support the health and well-being of the workers in the Loyalist East Business Park and surrounding areas. I believe this business fits the main goals of the business park. It creates employment, it adds to the commercial industrial tax base, and it services the other businesses in the park to make it a more desirable place to set up a business. I have letters of support from several local businesses, including Black Diamond Logistics, Kylie Paving, Dental Pros, and Mr. John Armitage. In closing, I'd like to say that businesses that are looking for, I'm sorry, I lost my place here, a place to set up shop are looking for the complete package. This package includes good roads and services, high-speed internet, natural gas, but also amenities for their staff, like a fitness center, cafe, and the likes of others. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Coburn. Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Coburn before we let him take a seat? Here, virtual seat. I see no questions. And is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak to this public meeting? If you are able to, can you use the hand signal to indicate your intent to speak? I'm seeing none. Okay. Is there anyone else? Okay. Then I'll say thank you, Mr. Coburn. I'll turn to staff. Is there anything you wish to add to this report at this time? I see Ms. Furness is here and available.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to give just a little bit brief outline of the application and what we were recommending. So it is a zoning bylaw amendment to permit additional use located at 101 William Henderson Drive in the Loyalist East Business Park. The property currently has light industrial exception zoning on it that permits various light industrial uses. So as just noted, the applicant's proposing a fitness center in the existing building. So as this use is currently not permitted, a zoning amendment had to be made, and the applicant also submitted a planning justification report in support of the amendment. Tonight, just to clarify, so we are doing the public meeting and we have included a recommendation report with it that we intended to make a recommendation with unless there were additional public comments that needed to be considered. Being that we didn't receive any additional comments from the public and we never received any beforehand as well, we do have a recommendation that is not to approve the application specifically because the township's official plan has specific policies pertaining to the Loyalist East Business Park, being that the predominant land uses are for industrial and commercial being permitted when it's related to the industrial use. So like a sales room if it's associated with some type of manufacturing. In addition, the official plan as well as the provincial policy statement and county official plan speak to planning, protecting, and preserving employment areas for future and current users. So this was also a factor as we consider the scarcity of employment lands and trying to preserve these lands for light industrial uses. As indicated, there's been no comments from the public. We did not receive any concerns from any agencies. And the one thing I just wanted to highlight is that we have prepared a bylaw that accompanies the staff report as well tonight. So if council does choose to approve the application, we would just recommend that the implementing bylaw be adopted as well in order to allow the zoning bylaw to become in effect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Furness. Council, do you have any questions with regard to the report and the application before us? I'm seeing no hands. We're all clear. Do we have a motion? I'll go to Councilor Porter.
I move to receive the report and approve the application and the subsequent bylaw. And if I get a seconder, I would explain why.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? And I'll take Councilor Gordon. Move or comment?
Yes, a couple of things. There's a fine gray area between commercial and service industry, and I think in my mind this falls more under a service to employees that work there. And I compare that to having a cafe or a restaurant there. They have to. Some people eat on their lunch, like myself, and some people work out on their lunch, and it is to me more of a service. Also, in the past, there was a daycare there. We also have in the past approved a dance studio. And I believe if you look at section 4.6.4.2 under permitted uses, it says
Councillor Porter, you seem to have frozen.
Says uses permitted also include, oh,
Go ahead.
am I back?
You're back, but you're a
Can you
little
hear me?
broken up. And you finished
Okay,
with
well, I will
the,
carry on.
your last comments were with regard to the section within the policy that you were referring to. You named the number,
Okay,
but we
yes.
didn't hear your thoughts after that.
Okay, it says that uses permitted also include ancillary service related uses. For example, it says community and recreational facilities, eating establishments, athletic clubs, daycare facilities, or other similar uses may be permitted provided the use is compatible with the industrial uses in the area and in no way will contribute to the detraction of the area for healthy industrial development. And I think a fitness club does fall under that that paragraph. And I think to support our business in the industrial park and to support the employees in the industrial park, and based on our previous decisions that we've made, I think it's only logical to allow this as well.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. Seconder, did you have comment? Councillor Gordon? No? Does anyone else have comment? I'm seeing no hands. Okay. Mover final.
No, I said everything I needed to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Then I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And thank you. We move forward to the confirmation of the agenda. Right. We have the agenda before us. To the clerk, is there anything to add to the agenda this evening?
Not that I'm aware of, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council, is there anything we need to adjust on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll look for a mover for the to move the agenda. Councillor Townend, so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parks, thank you. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? And I'll go to the deputy.
Thank you. 21.1, Frag Mighty's MCP of West Elgin, declaring a conflict as I'm employed by the provincial ministry that's being requested for action.
Thank you. So noted. Right. Are there any other declarations of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we move to the minutes. Right. Item 7.1, confirmation of the minutes and recommendations from the May 3rd Committee of the Whole meeting. We have the recommendation before us. Are there any noted errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll look for a mover. And I'll go to the deputy.
I was actually going to request separation
And
of the motion from the minutes.
I need a motion to approve the minutes first.
Okay.
Do I have a mover for the minutes? Councillor Porter, so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parks, thank you. And then deputy, you're requesting separation of the resolution? Okay.
Yes.
Right. So we'll do the minutes without the resolution at this time. All right. Are there any errors or omissions noted? Seeing none. And any comments? I'll call the question on the minutes. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We then move to the resolution, Committee of the Whole 2021.39. And Deputy, you want to speak to that? You asked for the separation?
Yes. And I'm prepared to make a motion if that's acceptable.
Please do.
To receive them with a minor amendment of the term and only 25% of the funds in item 1 to be removed.
And so moved. Clerk has clarity on the motion. And do I have a seconder for that? I call again. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Townend is seconding. Mover, go ahead.
I'll just be very brief. I spoke to this before. If it's going to be 25%, then I think it should be 25% right across the township. So with the solar, there's a portion there too that if we want to say 25% from both, that's one thing. But I don't see any need for the cap to be on there, because I see this as the money would be allocated according to the validity of the applications and not by a cap.
Thank you. Seconder comment? No? Anyone else have comment? I would note that item 13.2 on the agenda, I believe it's 13.2, also deals with this resolution and the staff report from that. With that, I will call unless there's further comment, then I will call the question on the resolution. Okay. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion has lost. And are there any subsequent motions? Councillor Porter?
Move to receive the resolution and adopt as written.
And again, just for clarity, the policy that is referred to in the resolution will be dealt with in 13.2. This is simply to receive it as it came out of committee of the whole, correct? So I'll take that as a motion then. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Parks, thank you. Councillor Porter, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, we did a lot of work on this. In particular, one council member did the majority work on it, and he brought several meeting of the minds together, for lack of a better word. I myself, I was not in favor of any allocation to a particular area. I wanted the funds to be based solely on merit, leave out geographic area completely. But it was very important to me that that proponents did not have to raise 50%, especially charitable organizations that had a great idea. It was also very important that there not be a cap, that each application was going to be based and judged on its own merit, regardless of location and regardless of cost. I wanted applications and to be awarded funds based on the best and most benefit that could be derived by the most of our taxpayers. And that was my mindset. And after lots of discussion and lots of debate, as we've had meetings on this, this was, to me, was a viable compromise from my perspective. And so I want to support the compromise with other council members that wanted the island to get their way, which they were looking for 25%, and even though I was originally opposed to it. So I think with all the work done and the compromise that's been given, and for the most part what was brought to our attention from the islanders, we have addressed. So that's why I think it should go forward as is.
Thank you. Second or comment? Nothing. Anyone else have comment at this time? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? And motion is carried. And we move to 7.2, the confirmation of the minutes of the 47th session of regular council on May the 10th. We have the minutes before us. Are there any noted errors or omissions? I'm seeing no hands. And can I get a motion to approve those minutes? Councillor Townend, thank you. Councillor Buderick seconds. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Which brings us to delegations and presentations. At this time, we're looking at the land acknowledgement update and presentation. And Ms. McFarland, will you be introducing our presenter? Oh, Ms. Fennell. I'm not sure who.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just going to share my screen here.
Before you share the screen, so go ahead, that's fine. Can I get you to introduce our guest speaker?
Of course. So my name is Hilary Fennell. I'm the Community Development Coordinator with the Township. And speaking with me this evening is Candace Lloyd, who I'll give a more in-depth introduction to in the following slide. Are you seeing the full screen of the slideshow there?
And I believe I am, certainly. Is any member of council having difficulty seeing the shared screen? I'm seeing no one with concern. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So Miigwech, good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to provide an update on the status of a very valuable project of the creation of a land acknowledgement for Loyalist Township. Did the screen move? Just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. This is in partnership with Candace Lloyd of Nokum Learning. Candace will be presenting with me this evening. She is a Métis cultural advisor, speaker, and educator focused on cultural awareness workshops, truth and reconciliation training, and relationship building. She recognizes the power of bringing people together from all walks of life. Building a community is a time-honored tradition of the Métis. Candace's goal is to find pathways to work together in the spirit of collaboration and harmony. Nokum Learning is Eastern Ontario's leader in Métis cultural and intercultural awareness consulting. Established in 2020, the company has built a solid professional reputation, providing Métis-led training, facilitation, and community engagement. There are 5 phases to the creation of a genuine and authentic land acknowledgement: planning, community engagement, consultation and language choice, drafting, and finally, education and sharing. A tremendous amount of planning is involved to ensure all of the necessary components are considered and carried out effectively. Because we set a goal for a June 21st project completion, there has been a lot to achieve in a short amount of time. Creating a work plan with timelines, establishing a communication strategy, and researching existing land acknowledgements from other agencies was our first step. Now I'll pass it to Candace.
Thank you, Hilary. Bonsoir this evening, everybody. So in phase 2, we did some community engagement through Nokum Learning and Loyalist Township. We worked together to create a social media invitation that was utilized to gain support for a working group in the Land Acknowledgement Sharing Circle. This initiative brought forward 15 individuals with interest in joining the project, and of those 15, 8 were Indigenous members of a community and local community and regional area. So to again facilitate a tight timeline, we worked on 2-hour meetings that were organized, facilitated, and monitored twice a week by Nokum Learning. And at the conclusion of each meeting, I apologize, my dog.
Not a problem.
Anyway, at the conclusion of each meeting, summaries were submitted to our members of the sharing circle for further review and input, as well as Hilary and I on the next day would debrief any progress that was made, how we felt about the circle, and next steps for the next meeting that we would be in to do. As part of that collective steps forward, all the hours of participants that have been completed thus far is approximately 186 hours. And the reason I mention this is because it's a significant commitment that is made by our Indigenous community and our non-Indigenous community in working together to create this land acknowledgement. And back to you, Hillary.
The third phase was consultation and language choice. Indigenous knowledge keepers participated in the sharing circle, where they provided the history and relevance of the various treaties and wampums and of the Crawford Purchase, all associated with this region. The words for inclusion were carefully selected to reflect cultural significance, including the list of Indigenous names and phonetic spelling to assist with pronunciation.
So in phase 4, this brings us to the drafting of a land acknowledgement. And it was only through the forward motion of all the information gathered through all of our sharing circle meetings and further outreach to Indigenous thought leaders and chiefs and elders to get correct feedback about the history of the community and the people that lived here prior to first contact. We need to recognize that that the Indigenous people are not a relic of the past, but a vibrant and resilient part of our present and able to move into a shared future. So authentic land acknowledgement is not a token or a check in a box. We're hoping that the recognition of past harms to Indigenous people through broken promises and treaties will help facilitate an understanding of knowing, or that it's not an apology of past, but a commitment to turn those shared parts into a co-journey of learning. So before we can complete a final land acknowledgement, we need time to review a draft, to educate council, to allow you to those additional pieces that are just missing out of this land acknowledgement and the language needed to that understanding for reconciliation. And then it will be returned and shared with our sharing circle, the land acknowledgement sharing circle, for final summation, for review, for approval, and then we can bring that back to you again and finalize our phrasing.
So as Candace just mentioned, phase 5 is perhaps the most important of all of the phases of this project. Although the sharing piece will be exciting after so much hard work, it is the education component that brings the most value and will be an ongoing opportunity for council and the community at large. Additionally, the land acknowledgement will be available for local events as a public document. There have been many Indigenous and non-Indigenous community members who have contributed their time to this project. We just ask for you to take a moment here to acknowledge their names. And as Candace mentioned, there was collectively quite a number of hours that have been committed to this project so far. And finally to you, Candace.
Thank you. So knowing all this is just the beginning. Ongoing educational initiatives are a primary focus for the division we're in with Hillary, and ensuring our dialogue continues for our Indigenous members of the community. As I've stated before, this is a co-learning journey, and it's a shared path built on the foundation of this first step. It may look daunting, but these small changes can create the greatest ripples to facilitate new positive relationships with your Indigenous peoples within and around the community. Kachimik for listening.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and I greatly appreciate specifically that you mentioned the hours and the individuals that participated in this work. It is very important work and be very difficult work at times. So I greatly appreciate the efforts that have been put forward so far. With that, I will turn to council. Council, do we have any comments or questions with regard to the presentation? And I'll start things off. One of the questions I've had coming through this, I'm assuming in my role as chair at the head of council, it will fall to me to read this on a regular basis. I understand that there are a number of languages involved, and I'm hoping that I can get some, I'll say, direct training on proper pronunciation and proper inflection through the acknowledgements.
I'll speak to that.
I'll take that on. Do you want to take on that, Hillary, or do you want me to?
No, go ahead, Candace. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, so anyone who participates in events, I would strongly recommend that even if you don't plan on reading this or using this, get to know the language, just in case. So I have a deputy mayor, I believe, here. Perhaps, one of the counselors may be at an event where they were asked to provide a land acknowledgement. So I'm not going to leave it just to you, Mayor, to hopefully pick up all those puzzle pieces. And absolutely, there will be language lessons and teaching to make sure that you understand not just the greetings, which I know you have the draft of a land acknowledgement in front of you. So understanding that being able to say those words, and this is what came back from our sharing circle, was so important. Hearing our language spoken to us in greeting is already welcome. So for me to be able to say that is knowing that the community we're in understands that you're making those first steps forward. So I would never put you in a position where the expectation is that you're not going to be able to say these words or that you're going to be fumbling along. So we're going to practice, and we're going to practice a lot. So just be prepared for that, and be prepared that it's okay to make those stumbles and falls, and be prepared that it's okay that I'm going to say, okay, let's try again. And anybody who wants to learn, please reach out, ask. We have multiple language classes available. We have multiple language teachers, and yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity. So yes, there will be opportunity for those education pieces. So yeah, my first one, Tanche. Hello.
And
So,
thank you.
Tanche.
And I will take the risk, and I apologize if I get it wrong, but I will say Miigwech. I believe that's thank you for the answer and for the effort to bring this forward. And other members of council with comments. Councillor Porter, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we could get a copy of your slide presentation and any other background information that you have on it. I very much appreciate getting additional information.
And Hillary or Candace?
Hillary, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I can most certainly send out. I can most certainly send out a copy of the slideshow to members of council.
Thank you very much.
So for my part on that is, if you want further background on what was created in that slide deck, PowerPoint, I know I'll be facilitating another opportunity for us to get together, and it will have a greater understanding background to all the information that was there, so that it's not like this big empty hole. So all the pieces that come up to that, to the lead up to the work that's in Hillary, our PowerPoint that we presented tonight, will give you a better understanding as well. So that will lead you into that next phase, because this piece might look a little out of place. So yeah, we'll get you the one that come before a little bit as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
appreciate that.
I think this would be a good time to note. You may note on the agenda under upcoming meetings, I have scheduled or asked for a meeting to be scheduled for May the 31st to be a training session to, I believe, working with Candace and for all of council to attend and be able to ask all of your questions to be able to get a better understanding of the importance of the works, the importance of the words in how much they mean to a variety of peoples across this process, and to make sure that we as council are comfortable and get it right. So I appreciate Candace being available to do that. And other members of council have comments or questions? And I'll likely save them all for next Monday night. Thank you very much. If there's no further questions, council, I would like a motion to receive the presentation. I'll go to Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Townend. Deputy Mayor, any comment?
No, like you said, I'll save my questions for next week.
Thank you. Councillor Townend, say anything? Anyone else? There seems nothing further. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And again, I thank you very much, Ms. Lloyd and Ms. Fennell, for your presentation tonight. And I look forward to learning more from you next week.
Miigwech for having me. Bamapi.
Language. And with that, we can move forward. Getting back to my agenda. We move to item 10 from the Office of the Chief Administrator. We have report number 10.1, background information on the LNA detachment, OPP detachment boards. Mr. Silver, do you have anything to add to your report at this time?
Nothing to add, Your Worship, but I do have a clarification for you.
Thank you.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that this same report is going to the other 3 lower tier municipal councils in the county. And in the report, there are other municipalities named, such as Deseronto, Tyandanega, and North Frontenac. I just want to clarify that we, the other 3 CAOs and myself, are in no way suggesting how they should govern their detachment of the OPP. It was merely a suggestion and a discussion point, and we welcome them to those other municipalities to submit their own proposal to the province if they choose to do so.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions with regard to the report? Councillor Porter, go ahead.
Yeah, through you to our CAO. Why is it recommended that only one member from either Loyalist or Greater Napanee? Like, what was the rationale for not having one member from each of the townships? For example, having 4 members as opposed to 2.
Yes.
Am I reading that wrong? It says one member from either Loyalist Township or Greater Napanee.
Through you, Your Worship. Yes, we're recommending that the 4 mayors be on the board or their designate. And then there would be 2 community members because it's worked out through a percentage. So one would be from the northern part of the county and one would be from the southern part of the county. We would share those. And then there'd be a provincial appointee as well. So we were trying to keep the numbers as low as possible. We could have suggested in council, if you prefer to have one community representative as well, I can certainly advise the other CAOs that we need to have a discussion about that.
And just to follow up,
yep.
The community members, could they be council members or are you just saying mayors only and no other council members?
Through you, Your Worship.
Yep.
They could be council members. They could be anyone that that shows an interest in it and who the 2 councils would want to appoint.
Councillor Porter, is that everything? Does anyone else have questions with regard to this report? Deputy, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you to the CAO. There was a note in here that there's the possibility that some of the boundaries will be changed and a portion of North Frontenac may fall under the Lennox and Addington detachment. Will that require any changes to this or will it just be a small portion and virtually the work will be done the same either way?
So through Your Worship, at the moment, a small portion of North Frontenac is policed through our detachment. And so in talking with the detachment commander, he is investigating the statistics around that, the number of calls. There may be a change, I don't know, but he is reviewing that at this point. Most of North Frontenac is as dispatched through Hardington. Is that, I think that's just the Frontenac detachment. And so it won't, so what we're saying, what I've said to the CAO from North Frontenac is that, say, I believe the last figures I had, they had 25 noise complaints last year. And so you know, the other three CAOs and myself, in our opinion, that doesn't qualify them for a seat on this detachment board that we want to form. Maybe there'll be some other form of governance. So they're, quite frankly, North Frontenac may be putting in their own proposal, but that would be, again, just adding the mayor or another community rep that would represent them. We were just looking at equity in that case. Deserato and Tyendinaga, in our discussions with them and the Mohawks, they see themselves aligned with Hastings County, which makes sense. But as I say, we're not telling them where they should end up.
Thank
Does that
you.
answer? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions regarding this report? Seeing none, we have a recommendation before us. Any member of council wish to make a motion? We'll go to Councillor Porter.
I'll move to receive and adopt the recommendation.
Move to receive and adopt. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Townend, thank you. Mover comment? Seconder comment? Anyone else have comment? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We move forward to item, I guess, 12.1. We have a report, SR 1741, improving public transportation. And we have Ms. McFarland with us. Ms. McFarland, do you have anything to add to this report at this time?
Nothing further, Your Worship, although I do have the Public Works Manager available if there are questions with regards to all the information within the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. Thank you for joining us. And Council, do we have questions with regard to this report? Anyone? And I'll start off then. Question through either the director or Mr. Scott. When looking at the planned enhancement between us and Napanee, what are we looking at this time?
I'll let Mr. Scott answer that question. He's had some direct comments or direct contact there.
Thank you.
So this, at this point, we've had an initial meeting with a member of staff from Napanee who unfortunately needs to go back to his council and get direction as to what they would like. We talked about a number of possible scenarios related to a commuter type service between Napanee and Amherst. There seems to be some desire from Napanee residents as far as getting into Kingston and vice versa. There may be residents of Amherst who want to go the other way. So we talked about some concepts. There's nothing hard and fast at this point until we get direction from both councils to proceed. So I would say it's more of an open book at this stage as to what we're looking for. So we have talked about the possibility of doing a expression of interest out to the commercial sector to see what's available. Obviously, time is of the essence with this funding. We have to basically have the funding spent by the March of 2023. So timing is going to be very tight. However, we're going to proceed. We want to proceed with something that's going to be sustainable. We don't want to put a pilot project out there just for the sake of pilot project that's not going to last beyond the funding envelope. So
thank you. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, we have a recommendation with 3 parts. Right. What would council like to do with it? Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendations.
Move to receive and adopt. Do I have a seconder? I'll take Councillor Parks. Thank you. Mover, any comment?
Just thanks to staff for the work that they've done on it and the collaboration with the other municipalities. And it's good to see that the information that Michael Cook prepared from the first step of the funding is being able to be utilized, at least helps get things started and doesn't have to start reinventing the wheel right from the beginning. So it's all coming. It's good that the money is all being invested and not just spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder, any comment? Anyone else have comment? I will add my comments that this is extremely exciting for me. I mean, this is something that we have been working towards, and no, we're not there yet, but it is a big step towards where we want to go with future transit and transportation systems within Loyalist and external to Loyalist. So this is wonderful, and I thank staff for proceeding down that line. With that, back to mover for final. And then I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. That's 12.1. We move to 12.2. Oh, no, we move to 13.1, digital signature policy. We have a report from the clerk. And Ms. Chapman, do you have anything to add to this report at this time?
Only if there's questions, Your Worship.
Okay. Council, do we have any questions with regard to the report? I'm seeing none. What would you like to do with this report? Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendation.
So moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parks, thank you. Any comments from the mover?
Just, it's been proven that we need to go forward on this. The last year's proven that, if not before. And I know personally what a struggle it is to try and do all the electronic signatures when really the policies aren't in place or the avenues to be able to do it properly.
You seconder, any comment?
And my sentiments exactly.
Thank you. And I can confirm that this is a system that has been used in other venues and other municipalities quite successfully. So I'm sure it will work well here. Any final comments? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to 13.2, the draft amended renewable energy vibrancy policy. We have a report before us derived from the committee of the whole meeting. And to the clerk, is there anything we need to add to this report at this time?
I don't believe so, Your Worship. We worked on the report to try and make sure we highlighted where the changes were caught from the COW resolution through the table and the background information on it. So if there's any questions, then we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any questions with regard to this report? Any questions for clarity? I'm seeing none. Then I look for a motion. Councillor Porter, go ahead.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendations.
And 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Buderick, thank you. Mover comment?
I believe just from reading it that it is in keeping with the comments made at the Committee of the Whole and the requested changes to the policy until there's a full policy, which I don't think, and I presume we're going to see the full policy, not just the changes.
Policy is attached. Draft policy version 2 is attached.
It's a red line version, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we will see it again at the Committee of the Whole based on this resolution, right?
I understand that. Yep. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just for clarity, the resolution that's there is basically that council would be approving the policy. The red line, of course, would be removed and it would be tidy, but the intent or just change the resolution that it is going for. And I guess we would need direction of what changes or what intent is to bring it to another COW.
Okay, my apologies. The red line is difficult to read. I have read it. I believe it is in keeping with all the changes that were requested at the Committee of the Whole. That's why I moved the resolution to approve the recommendation. My comment meant that the draft terms of reference were going to have to reference the policy to come up with the terms of reference, I presume. That's all. It was just another review.
Yes.
But my motion is to approve it.
To the clerk?
Through your worship. So what will happen is we'll bring the policy, we'll clean it up, take the red line out of it. We'll clean up the policy and bring that forward to the next council meeting with the bylaw to adopt the policy. And the intent is that the terms of reference can go to the committee of the whole meeting for further discussion, if that's acceptable.
Thank you. That clarifies it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. And anything else, Councillor Porter? And second, or any comment?
Just like to thank staff for quick work on this turnaround from a committee of the whole. Fantastic work to get that ready for this meeting.
Thank you. Other members wish to comment? Councillor Townend, I'll go with you first, then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a little more extensive remarks. I won't be voting for the motion this evening. It would be fair to say that this issue of vibrancy is probably the most salient issue for the island community, certainly in this term of council, but perhaps within a recent generation. So I feel it's important to, in my role as the representative for Ward 1, to speak very clearly on a few key points that have come to my attention from my constituents that I ought to say for the record. The first is with respect within the policy here to the absorption of the community grant funding stream within the Wind Electric Fund. Simply from across the channel, it appears that that exercise is rather punitive in nature. It appears to strip the island's community groups of funding. The notion that this particular policy decision would save taxpayers money, which was a suggestion at the Committee of the Whole, seems hard for islanders to accept since the community grant funding stream at a budget of $11,500 represents 0.06% of this year's total levy. So it's not a major savings. What is noteworthy is that over the past 5 years, island community groups from the Back Kitchen to the Emerald Music Festival have received a total of $33,100 of community grant money. So indeed, on the whole, islanders have benefited the most from this particular funding stream for no other reason than the fact that the island is an active community in touch with its municipality, and it knows how and where to apply for funds. But they feel rather than being rewarded for their community work, islanders are now having that taken away from them, because essentially when what islanders are able to access of it is rolled into the 25% of the Wind Electric CBA, they're out of pocket whichever way you look at it. Either they're actually getting less than 25% because what they typically get from the community grant funding stream is subtracted from that 25%, or they're in essence simply not getting any more community grant funding, period. When it's also noted that the new draft policy places a determined emphasis on staff being able to make application to the island's portion of the fund, community groups have more reason to be concerned. 25% of the CBA over 20 years amounts to roughly $2.5 million. So conceivably, if staff propose a capital project or a series of projects for the island, $2.5 million can get used up pretty quickly. Now, on the one hand, any capital investment is fantastic and welcome, and staff's efforts would be greatly appreciated. However, with the funds used up and no more community grant funding stream, island community groups are now staring down the barrel of the real possibility that they would receive zero financial injection from the township. So far from the fund benefiting the island's community life, it's poised now, or at least it's risking being poised in this new policy to actually dispossess it. So a 20-year period of promised growth turns into a period of austerity. All of this points to a lack of basic equity in how council proposes to move forward with the disbursement of these vibrancy funds. Islanders wonder, for instance, why they're not able to access the KP solar funds, which are intended for the whole township. They would ask, is the island not part of the township? Do islanders not pay taxes? Again, this seems punitive. Islanders also have a much reduced confidence in the new committees that are proposed in this policy. It strikes many islanders that if council was willing to take the best of a year's work from an excellent public committee and bend it to their will whilst summarily dismissing its hardworking membership, then council will do what it wants in the end anyway, regardless of the consequences. So islanders feel that any committee or subcommittee going forward will really be nominal fronts to legitimize council using the vibrancy funds as a capital account for its own use. So to conclude, it's no exaggeration to say that islanders feel like they're being treated like a vassal state of Loyalist Township, an assembly of peasants told to know their place and be grateful. That place, which the island has been assigned through this policy, is most assuredly a second-class status. And I regret that we're here. I regret that I feel compelled to state that I feel this policy is unfair and regressive. I am a proud member of Loyalist Council, and I do serve all of Loyalist Township. And I do believe this policy is neither in the interest of Loyalist nor Amherst Island in particular. So I would be remiss if I weren't to plead with colleagues one last time to reconsider this direction and defer the new policy back to Committee of the Whole. But in any case, I'd like to finish by applauding my residents in Ward 1 for their tenacity and their spirit of community, because no matter what the outcome is of such decisions as tonight, no council ever has the authority or the power to wither the immense and robust spirit of Islanders. Amherst Island will endure come what may. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Townend. Anyone else wish to speak on this topic? Deputy, go ahead.
Thank you. First, I just want to thank staff for, as was mentioned before, bringing this, pulling it together quickly, being able to glean the intent from the Committee of the Whole to be able to bring these documents forward. It appears that you captured it quite well. The second part is I won't be supporting the motion simply because, well, I've covered that ground several times. I did just a few minutes ago. So just to state that I won't be supporting it at this time.
Thank you. Other members? No one? I'll go back to the mover. Final comment?
Yeah, I do take exception to some of Councillor Townend's remarks. I believe that we have gone over and above with this policy to recognize the island. They're actually getting more than any other part of our communities are getting. They have been recognized as being special and deserving of a specific portion of the funds. I don't think it's fair of him to say that they are being treated like they're second-class citizens when in fact it's the opposite. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. And with that, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And moving forward, we go to 14.1. Council Representative for the Coordination Committee for the Amherst West Secondary Plan. We have a report before us, and I believe we have the director here, Ms. Merritt. Thank you. And Ms. Merritt, do you have anything to add to this report at this time?
Nothing to add at this point, Your Worship, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions? I see no questions. And this report is requesting the appointment of a member of council to the committee. Okay. I will put it out there. Do I have a volunteer? No volunteers. Councillor Buderick, you're volunteering?
Yes, due to the fact that my schedule should be a little later because I believe that the taxi committee commission will be nearing its end very soon.
Thank you. Any other members? Councillor Townend, go ahead.
But just a point of procedure, your worship, do we have to nominate Mr. Buderik, or can he nominate himself?
And well, I would now turn to asking for a motion. And if someone wants to put a name in that motion, that would effectively be that nomination.
All right.
Are you so doing so?
Prepared to do so. Yep.
Then
Yeah,
go ahead.
I nominate Councillor Buderik.
And thank you. Do I have a seconder for that nomination? And I'll take Councillor Porter. Thank you. And are there any other volunteers and or any other questions or comments with regard to this? Seeing none, and I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Buderik, for volunteering. Moving forward to item 16, communication for consideration. We have a communication with regard to Layer Cake Hall. And we have it before us. Council, what would you like to do with it? Councillor Porter, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll move to receive and ask that a report come forward as to the possible locations for a library.
Thank you. Move to receive and request for a report. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Parks, thank you. Any comment, Councillor Porter?
Just that libraries are vitally important. And I know a lot of people say, well, you can get all the information online and you don't need a book. But I think a book is a historical record that can't be changed. And I think it's really important that we keep our books and keep our libraries active and viable.
Thank you. Councillor Parks, any comment? No? Oh.
I would agree with what Councillor Porter has said. As many know, there's been a new bookstore also up in the village, and it's been well utilized too during the pandemic. So it is something that we would want to encourage young and old alike to engage in reading.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to notices of motion or direct motion. Do we have anything from council this evening? Councillor Townend, go ahead.
Just a notice of motion, your worship. Whereas Amherst Islanders formerly possessed access to the island brush pile site week round, be it resolved that staff present a report to council regarding options to increase access to the brush pile at the new location outside of regular dump hours.
I'll take that as a notice of motion.
Notice of motion.
Thank you. And you'll provide a written copy of that to the clerk?
For sure.
Thank you. Anything else under notices of motion or direct motion? I'm seeing none. I think we'll move along to the consent agenda. For the purpose of convenience and for expediting meetings, matters of business that are repetitive or routine in nature are included in the consent agenda. And all such matters of business contained in the consent agenda are voted on collectively. Any particular matter of business may be singled out from the consent agenda for debate or separate vote upon the request of any member of council. In the case of a separate vote, the excluded matter of business is severed from the consent agenda. Each and every matter of business contained in the consent agenda is recorded separately in the minutes of the meeting. Is there anything anyone wishes to separate out from the consent agenda? I'll start with Councillor Townend.
Yes, your worship, I'd like to separate 21.1 for the deputy mayor.
21.1, thank you. Anything else anyone wishes to separate? Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I'd also like to separate 21.2.
21.2. Thank you. Anything else from anyone? And seeing none, and with those two separated, I'll call the question on the, or no, can I get a motion for the consent agenda? And I'll take Councillor Buderik, seconded by Councillor Parks. And any comments on any of the remaining items within the consent agenda? Seeing none, oh, Councillor Porter, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure of procedure, whether I should have separated, but I just want to congratulate the CRCA for their financial statements. They did a great job keeping their expenses down over 2020 and balancing their budget.
Thank you and well noted. Any other comments with regard to any of the items still on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. For the separated items, I'll start with 21.1. The deputy mayor has declared a conflict on that. And we have the item on, I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, Phragmites. Right. What would you like to do with this, council? Councillor Townend?
I'm happy to let Councillor Porter make the motion.
Okay, Councillor Porter.
I'm just going to move to receive and support.
Motion to receive and support. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Townend, thank you. Councillor Porter, any comment? Councillor Townend, any comment? Anyone else have comment? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay. And then we move to 21.2, youth justice facilities in northeastern communities. That was asked for separation by the deputy mayor. Deputy, you wish to comment on it?
Yes, thank you. I'd move to receive and support.
Motion to receive and support. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Budrick, thank you. Move or comment?
Just, I think the province really needs to take a hard look at some of these when they're closing facilities that are going to relocate youth that need community involvement to place them several hours drive away from their residence or away from the communities. In a lot of cases, the experts will say that that's actually detrimental to the residents of the facilities and to the families affected by it. So supporting this hopefully just gives the province a little twig to maybe take a second look at it and make sure they're doing the right thing.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Budrick.
More similar to the deputy's comments. It's the taking people out of their area and the fact that, they may be institutionalized and they don't have a support system local anymore of their family with the ability to visit them, which is very detrimental to any rehabilitation or anything going forward in that regard to their well-being.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Which brings us to members' privilege. Is there anything under members' privilege that any member would like to bring forward tonight? I'll start with Councillor Gordon.
Hi, you can hear me?
We can hear you.
Just wanted to have a shout out to the Lionheart program that has gone on and continued as we speak tonight. I don't even know what they're in now for 50-some thousand or 60,000 meals served in the Loyalist Township. In addition to that, as if these folks don't work hard enough, they also organized a vaccination clinic. So Lisa, who runs up the sharing center, called me last week and asked if I would get involved and help out with some phone calls. So between her and I and a number of the other volunteers, we managed to register 161 folks who will be getting their first shots at the Amherst Recreation Hall at 3 o'clock on Thursday. So it was, once the word got out, it got a little crazy. And but anyway, these people are pretty amazing. So very impressive, and as if they won't do, like I said, as if they're not doing enough with the meals, now they're helping out with the vaccination. So just wanted to give kudos to them. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else under members' privilege? Councillor Townend, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to congratulate Ward 1's own Terry McGinn, who was selected as the 2021 valedictorian for St. Lawrence College.
Absolutely. Wonderful achievement. Anyone else under members' privilege? Councillor Buderick.
Just like to pass on township's condolences to a former resident whose passing was very sudden. Kingston Police Officer Sergeant Steve Carter, who grew up in Amershus, and his parents who still live in Amershus. It was very unfortunate of his passing at such a young age.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anything else under members' privilege? Seeing none, we move forward to upcoming meeting dates. As noted earlier, May the 31st, next Monday, it's a new item on the agenda, on the schedule. There will be a training for council on Indigenous relations, and as you heard, we talking about that earlier. Following that, June the 7th, Committee of Adjustment. As well on June the 7th, there'll be a Committee of the Whole after the Committee of Adjustment, and then our regular council meetings, June the 14th and 28th. Is there anything else to add to that schedule this time to the clerk?
I don't believe so, Your Worship, but just again, for anybody listening, that there are two different links for those meetings. So the Committee of Adjustment link is one and the COW is another one. So if somebody wants to watch both, make sure they have both links.
Absolutely. Oh, and that actually reminds me, I wanted to remind all members of council, you have been invited to attend a portion of the county council meeting tomorrow evening to learn about the EORN project and the progress it's been making. So I hope you will be able to sign into that. If you have any difficulties getting that, please also please let the clerk know if you're going to be attending, because the clerk of the county has asked for numbers. Again, preferably if you could let the clerk know this evening. She would appreciate that. She told me earlier.
Thank you.
Anything else? So we move to the confirmatory bylaw. I get a motion for that. From the deputy, seconded by Councillor Townend. Any comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And we come to the motion to adjourn. Anyone? Councillor Porter, so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gordon, seconds. Thank you. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, folks. Have a great evening. And if you're so inclined, enjoy the game.
Good night, everyone.